Hello, my name is Eldon Matlick, and I'm the professor of horn here at the University of Oklahoma. This is a clinic over Pottag Etude 52 from Preparatory Melodies for solo work. The problems are threefold with this etude. First is with regards to tempo. You need to select a tempo that is not so slow that the etude grinds on the chops. If you play it too slow, you'll really get tired and worn out. However, on the other side, if it's going too fast, then you will have accuracy problems. So it's just one of those things where you got to find for you the right tempo. Secondly, this is a very slippery exercise. You need to be sure that you are getting the right pitch on the intervals and in the correct time. You have a lot of open intervals, fourths, fifths, sixths, and it's jumping around all over the place. So you need to be very, very fluid. Third problem is actually related to the second, being that it's a slippery exercise. It's angular, lots of skips. Even though it is triadic in certain places, triadic means outlining chords, there are many other open intervals, such as the intervals of a fourth and a fifth. So you must identify these and have them in your ear. This is going to be of paramount importance for this particular exercise. Let's discuss tempo and rhythm first. For me, when I was playing this exercise, it sort of made me remember the opening of Rossini's Overture to William Tell, the opening oboe solo that depicts the sunrise. What I had to do when I played that exercise is I used a lot more energy for those bottom notes to make sure that they have the same presence of sound as the upper notes. There are three rules of using air. One, notes that go up need more air. That way you'll resist the temptation to clamp on the embouchure. To squeeze the note out, you need to blow it out. Two is that lower notes need more air. Lower notes take more energy to sound as loud as middle or upper range notes. It's a matter of physics. So make sure that when you dip down, unless there's a diminuendo or a softer dynamic written, you make sure to your ear that those lower notes sound just as present as the notes that are higher, that immediately precede it. Okay, now let's talk about tempo. I like to set my metronome after I played that little opening melody that I just demonstrated for you. I think a good tempo is a dotted quarter note at around 63 to 66. I think this works well. When working out this etude, set a triplet subdivision to the pulse. Set the pulse subdivision slow enough when you're working on this to play everything 100% accurately. Here's the tempo. 1, 2. This is the large pulse. So here's the triplet subdivision. Just nice and even. Then, if you look at the end of the second line, we have the dotted eighth, 16th, 8th rhythm. This jagged triplet rhythm. Be sure and play the 16th note halfway between clicks 2 and 3. Da dee 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 dee. Notice how I'm sustaining to the second click. And notice, being that the middle note is lower, I had to bump up the volume on that lower note to make sure that it has the same presence. Now, let's talk about the slippery, angular portion of this exercise and offer some solutions and strategies for you to get this under control. First, work one phrase at a time. Get each phrase in your ear. One of the things that will help you is to make sure that you can identify the central recurring note. I call this the anchor note on each phrase. Let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. Measure 1 and 2. The recurring anchor note is D. You play a D, then you go up and down, and you play the D again, you go up and down, play the D. That D recurs. That's the anchor note. That's the anchor pitch going through this. On measures 3 and 4, the recurring anchor note is the E. And then on measure 9 and 10, the recurring anchor note is G. Making sure that you hear and get those notes. And when you once get it, you move on to another note. Get that note in your ear, knowing that you're going to go back to that same pitch. Making sure that these anchor notes are your point of reference will help you in your intervallic stability. The measures that I just cited will need to have significant work to perfect. Get these problematic measures in your ear. Be able to hear the prominent intervals of the perfect fourth, which is in measure 1 and 2. So you have the anchor note, D. And then the perfect fourth interval is between the D and the A and the D. So you have the anchor of the D, and then you have really a subsidiary anchor on the A. And the D to the A is the fourth. Now let's look at the next phrase, 3 and 4. Here you have the perfect interval of the fifth from E to A. Being able to get these solid, being able to get them in your ear will make this much, much easier. Another interval that you need to address is the minor seventh. This occurs on measure 9. We have a pickup A. A to A is an octave. So the G, natural, is the lowered seventh or a minor seventh. So that we have that reference. And then finally, the other important interval is the major sixth, and that occurs at measure 11. going from your F sharp down to your A, back up to the F sharp. Looking at the landscape of this entire exercise will give you more clues on how to approach this. Observe how the piece is constructed so you can give yourself something to latch onto. For instance, in measure 1, the initial note is D. In measure 3, the additional note is E. So the first passage starts on D, the next passage starts on E. Okay, it's a little higher. But if you notice that even though it's elevating, the bottom pitch, the A, stays the same on the first two phrases. Put this A on automatic pilot. Now, we can simplify this whole exercise by looking at its skeleton, and this will help identify other anchor notes that will help you. Look at measure 9 through 13. Notice how prominent the second space A is. Be able to recall this note for stability. Get a feel for this note and put this on autopilot. Don't even think about playing the A, you just know where it's going to instinctively be so that you can concentrate on the other melodic anchors. So, what are these other melodic anchors when I'm talking about the skeleton? Look at measure 9. You have an A pickup to the first note, the G. Measure 11. We have an F sharp with a pickup on a D. Measure 13, we have the anchor note E with a pickup on an A. And then the final anchor resolution is on D, and that's at measure 15. So the skeleton is as such. So that's where everything's going. It's going down. So it's going scale-wise down from G to F sharp to E and then finally D. And D is preceded by the leading tone of the scale. So just play the anchor notes. So that was the downbeats of 9, 11, 13, and 16. Now, if you look at measure 15, here's another skeleton that will help you. Look at the stepwise movement in measure 15 of F sharp, E. And then you have the D cadence at the last note on 16. But that's preceded by the 7th note of the scale, the C sharp. That helps you really establish that D. Now, let's talk about some other strategies. One of the things that you can do is practice this on natural harmonics. In other words, do these as lip slurs. For instance, on measures 1 through 4, you can play this all on the B flat horn with the first and second combination. Now, I wouldn't recommend you do this when you play this for an audition or something like that. But this is really good work. It'll help you fine-tune your lip focus, making sure that you keep that air moving nice and fluid. Next, play this by buzzing your mouthpiece. And listen as you play to make sure that you have wind in your buzz. We don't want a pinched. So make sure that you put your finger, I like to use my little finger, in front of the shank so you can feel the wind hitting this, and making sure that when you go up and go down, you feel the same presence of the air. You can also do this same thing with a natural horn on measures 11, 12, and 13. Avoid thinking of intervals going up and down when you play this. That's our natural inclination, is to play higher notes up here, lower notes down there. In fact, I want you to think differently. Upper notes are reached more in front of you with the air. And then when you play lower notes, you don't have as much velocity of air, but you have to increase the density of the air. That's what I was talking about. Lower notes need more energy. It's not velocity energy, it's density energy. Let's do another demonstration. If we think about the first phrase and we whistle it. I didn't have quite enough air to get to the end of that. Now, when you do this, not only feel what the air is doing. Air is pretty much constant. It doesn't ebb and flow. It's just going straight out. But notice what your tongue does. If you capture that same motion of the tongue when you play, this will help you fine-tune these intervals and your execution. Now, the other measures that I haven't addressed, they're pretty much straight melodic, like getting into 5, and then you have a neighbor phrase, a little softer. Now, when we have grace notes like that, a little accentuation is always good to make sure that that grace note is heard. And also play it just a little bit earlier. Don't crowd it to where it's right on top of the principal note that follows. Let the ear really delineate that note. The other way, it really doesn't sound good. It almost sounds like you fracked the note or missed. Now let's look at measure 14, because this is the only measure we haven't looked at so far. We've come in through this oscillating interval from the A to the E. Yeah, notice at the very end of measure 14, upper part of a scale. So now we have all these strategies set out so you can have a successful performance. Now let's hear what this etude is like in its entirety.